Okay, so are you ready for this? We're going to dive into something pretty unexpected this time, like Scottish folklore. And being trans
Yeah.
and autistic, you wouldn't think those things all go together.
Right.
But trust me on this one, it's way more insightful than you'd expect.
It really is remarkable, how these ancient stories, like they still resonate with people's lives, even
I
now.
know, right? It's like they tap into something universal. Anyway, the source material we're looking at today comes from this podcast, The Outside, specifically an episode by Jamie Horrocks.
Oh, I know James' work.
They have their PhD, by the way.
Wow.
Yeah, and they wrote this really powerful essay about their life, and they kind of weave in this old Scottish folk tale called The Well at the End of the World. So it's like a story within a story,
I love that.
right? And James, both trans and autistic,
Okay.
and they identify as a Gestalt language processor, or a GLP.
That's really significant, actually. Being a GLP really shapes how someone experiences the world, how they understand themselves. It has a whole other layer to things.
It totally does. Okay, so let's talk about this folktale because it's a little out there. So there's this young girl, right? And she's given this task to get water from a well.
Okay.
But the well is at the end of the world.
At the end of the world.
At the end of the world.
Oh.
And she's given a sieve to carry the water. Talk about setting someone up for failure.
Oh, yeah. You can't carry water in a sieve. That's like impossible.
It's impossible. Exactly.
So it's like a classic folktale setup, though.
Yeah.
Super symbolic. And this is where Jamie connects with it, that feeling of being unequipped to do something,
Yeah.
of facing this challenge without the right tools.
And this is where being a Gestalt language processor comes in, right?
Right, exactly. So Jamie talks about how, GLPs, they often don't have those same, like, common scripts or frameworks that other people use to figure out who they are, their identity.
What do you mean scripts?
Okay, so imagine, like, you're trying to put together furniture, but you don't have the instruction manual.
Mm.
You might have an idea of what it should look like, right? But actually getting there, putting the pieces together, completely different story.
That's a great analogy.
Right.
Yeah, it makes you realize how much we depend on those instructions, those scripts, without even realizing it.
Absolutely.
And if you don't have those basic pieces, those building blocks of understanding, I can see how navigating something as complex as gender identity would be so much harder.
Definitely. And, I think that's a really important point here, that everyone kind of comes to this process of figuring themselves out with different tools. What seems totally straightforward for one person might be a huge struggle for someone else. It's all relative.
Yeah. And for Shamie, that feeling of not having the right tools, of looking for the right words or way to understand, it becomes like a theme in their journey. Just like that girl with the sieve,
Such a good metaphor.
It's such a good metaphor. And it made me think, have you ever felt like that? Like you were missing something crucial about yourself? Like you just didn't have the information, the understanding to really get who you are?
I think we've all felt that way at some point, that sense of searching. You want to understand yourself better, but it's like, where do you even start? It's kind of like that saying, right? A journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. Sometimes just admitting you feel lost, uncertain, that's the first step to finding your way.
I like that. And speaking of journeys, this folktale, it takes this really interesting turn. Okay, so the girl's dealing with all this stuff on her quest, right, to the well. But even though she's struggling, she still makes sure to be kind to other people.
It's so powerful what Jamie picks up on there. I mean, it'd be totally understandable if she just shut down, focused only on her impossible task.
Yeah.
But no, she still sees the needs of the people around her.
Yeah, exactly. And these aren't like huge gestures or anything. It's more like small acts of kindness, little things. And you know what? It ends up actually helping her along the way. People are more willing to help her, to give her guidance because she was kind to them. It's like this reminder that even when we're at our lowest, kindness, it still matters. It creates this ripple effect.
Absolutely. And Jamie connects that to their own life, too.
Yeah.
Helping others, being there for people. It became this way to deal with their own struggles, their own stuff.
Oh, wow. That makes me think about times when things felt really chaotic for me, uncertain. Sometimes just focusing on what someone else needs, even in a small way, gives you a sense of purpose, like you find your footing again.
Totally. And it's
Oh.
not even just about giving kindness, right? It's about being open to receiving it too, like those
Yeah.
people in the story offering to help the girl. Jamie talks about finding support in places they didn't expect, even just having people acknowledge their journey, even if they didn't totally get it. It made a huge difference.
Yeah, that feeling of being seen is so important. especially when you're figuring things out about yourself. It reminds me of that part where Jimmy talks about finding information about hormone replacement therapy.
HRT.
Yeah, HRT. For anyone listening who might not know, that's a medical treatment that a lot of transgender people use. It
Oh,
helps their body match their gender identity.
right, right, of course.
Anyway, Jamie was saying that just finding that information about HRT, it was like this lifeline, like a hand reaching out to pull them up, you know? And it really made me realize how important it is for people to have access to accurate information, especially with something as personal and complex as gender identity.
Absolutely. Knowing your options, having accurate information, it can be life-changing.
Hmm.
And it speaks to how crucial it is to share our stories. You never know who might be listening, who might find hope or feel seen because of what you shared.
So true. So we've got this girl, she's on her quest, she's showing kindness to others, and people are being kind to her in return. But ultimately, she still has to get to that well. You know, like that's the whole point. And for Jamie, reaching that well, that moment lines up with their decision to start HRT.
And that's where the symbolism of the well gets even deeper. Because it's not just about physically getting there, you know? It's about the transformation that happens when she reaches it.
Okay, so I want to hear more about that. What does Jamie say about that idea? Like, oh, about transformation. Okay, so I want to hear more about that. What does Jamie say about that idea, like about transformation?
So in the story, the well, it's not just about water, right? It's
Oh.
deeper than that, almost like spiritual. The water has this power to heal, to change things. And that's how Jamie sees starting HRT.
Hmm.
It wasn't just medical. It was about their physical self, finally matching who they were inside, a journey they had been on for years, you
Okay,
know?
so it's like reaching their own well at the end of the world. All that, searching, feeling lost. It led to this huge change.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And what's really interesting is that in the folktale, it doesn't just end with her at the well. She's got to go home, and she's different now. And not everyone understands that. Not everyone's cool with it.
Oh, wow. I didn't realize that about the story. So what happens? Like, how do people react to her being back but changed?
There's jealousy, confusion. It's kind of like a reminder that even good changes, positive ones, they can still be met with negativity. And Jamie talks about this too, how even after starting HRT, navigating the world came with a whole new set of challenges.
That makes sense. You know, even if people were supportive before, actually seeing someone's appearance change, that's a whole other thing. People might not get that it's not about how you look, it's this big internal shift.
Absolutely. And Jimmy talks about how important it was to stay true to what being trans meant to them, even with all that pressure, all those judgments from other people.
That's so powerful to finally get to that place where you accept yourself and then to be strong enough to say, this is me, this is my truth, no matter what anyone else says.
It really is. And I think that's what makes Femi's stories so inspiring. It's about resilience, about finding your own way, and ultimately about being true to who you are, even when it's hard.
Ugh, that gives me chills. It's like no matter what well you're searching for, you
Right.
know, whether it's about who you are or what your purpose is or finding love, whatever, there might be tough times, people who don't get it, but the important thing is to stay true to yourself and your own journey.
Couldn't have said it better myself. It's a powerful message. We can all learn from that.
So true. Okay, well, as we wrap up this deep dive, I'm going to leave you with this question. What wells are you searching for in your own life? What changes are you hoping for? And how can you approach your journey with the same strength and authenticity that Jamie shows us?
That's a really good question. Something to think about.
It is. On that note, we'll wrap up this deep dive. Thanks for joining us.